People love new ideas. They love new systems, new methods, new shortcuts. And that is why most people stay poor. They keep changing the recipe. But they still expect a perfect cake. That's not how the world works. That's not how investing works. And it's certainly not how you build wealth over a lifetime. Warren and I became rich for a very boring reason. We kept the same principles for 60, 70 years. Ben Graham taught Warren the foundation intrinsic value, margin of safety, rationality, avoiding stupidity. Those ideas still work. They've always worked, and they will keep working long after you and I are gone. People think you need something modern, something fancy, some new age financial theory. No, you don't. You need the old stuff, the stuff that works. And you need the discipline to stay with it longer than other people can stand. Warren didn't reinvent the wheel. He learned the right wheel early. Then he spent a lifetime turning it. That's the whole story. And here is the part people always misunderstand. We did not stop learning. We simply refused to change the core ideas. We expanded around them. We deepened our understanding. We widened the circle of competence without breaking the circle. Phil Fisher added the idea of great businesses, durability, quality, long-term competitive advantage. But Fisher didn't replace Graham. He refined Graham. It's like upgrading the engine without removing the foundation of the car. Most people want a new car every season. They throw out the entire machine because they got bored. Boredom is not a strategy. It's a disease. This is one of the biggest advantages in life, the ability to keep using the same reliable principles while still improving your judgment over time. Warren didn't get rich because he changed strategies. He got rich because he stopped changing strategies. Let me put it bluntly. If your approach changes every 3 years, you don't have an approach. You have a hobby. Investing is not a hobby. It is a discipline. It is a lifelong learning process built on a foundation that does not shift. People ask me, Charlie, what new investment concepts should I learn today? What new principles are you using now? None. Zero. The same ones as always. Principles don't go out of fashion. Only people do. If something worked 50 years ago and still works today, you may not like how simple it is, but that doesn't make it wrong. People want complexity because complexity feels impressive. But complexity destroys returns. Simplicity, multiplied over decades, builds fortunes. You need a few ideas. Not 50, not 500, just a few, but understood so deeply that you stop making dumb mistakes. That's what Warren did. That's what I did. That's what you should do. Here's the truth. Your biggest enemy in investing isn't ignorance. It's restlessness. The urge to chase the next big thing. The belief that a better system is hiding around the corner. There isn't. If there were, we would have found it. You don't need new principles. You need fewer distractions. You need more patience. You need a mind that can stay with the boring path long enough to let compounding do its job. And yes, compounding is slow. So slow that most people quit before it gets interesting. They think slowness means failure. No, slowness is the mechanism. Slowness is exactly how compounding works. Fast money is the illusion. Slow money is the truth. Look at Warren. 90% of his net worth came after he turned 65. He didn't buy some magical investment at 65. He just kept the same framework he had at 25. That is the entire point. People ask for secrets. They want formulas. They want clever techniques. Fine. Here's the secret. Find a simple set of correct principles. Stick with them for 50 years. Ignore everyone trying to sell you excitement. Most people can't do that. Not because it's hard intellectually, but because it's hard emotionally. They want novelty. Markets punish novelty. Markets reward discipline. Staying with the same principles isn't stubbornness. It's intelligence. It's knowing that wisdom doesn't need updates every quarter. Human nature hasn't changed in thousands of years. Greed is the same. Fear is the same. Overconfidence is the same. So the principles that protect you from human nature also don't change because the enemy hasn't changed either. If you adopt this mindset, you already have an unfair advantage. You've eliminated 90% of mistakes before you even start. So let me summarize part one for you in one sentence. The way I like to put things, the faster you stop searching for new principles, the faster your wealth starts compounding. That's it. You either learn this early or you suffer a long time trying to reinvent what's already proven. People misunderstand lifelong learning. They think it means stuffing their heads with every new idea that walks by. That's not learning. That's intellectual gluttony. And like any form of gluttony, it makes you slow and stupid. Real learning is selective. It's deliberate. It's filtered. You add things because they matter, not because they're fashionable. Most people accumulate knowledge the way hoarders accumulate junk. Piles of information, zero organization, nothing actionable, and no ability to distinguish gold from garbage. That's why they fail. Warren and I learned all our lives. That part is true. But we did not learn everything. We learned what helped us make better decisions. We ignored the rest. And ignoring the rest is the hard part. The world is loud. The world loves noise. The world wants your attention more than it wants your success. If you don't develop the skill of shutting out the noise, you will spend your life chasing trivia. Most investors are walking encyclopedias of useless facts. They know the latest headlines. They memorize market gossip. They track predictions from people who are wrong 85% of the time. And what good does it do them? None. Absolutely none. Meanwhile, Warren reads annual reports. He studies the economics of industries. He improves his understanding of how the world actually works, not how CNBC pretends it works. That's why he wins. Learning isn't about volume. It's about relevance. One correct insight applied properly is worth more than 1,000 fashionable theories. When Warren learned more about the oil industry or banking or consumer goods, he didn't learn it because it looked interesting, and that he learned it because it helped him operate better inside his circle of competence. You don't have to know everything. You just need to know the right things, and you need to know them deeply. Depth beats breadth every time. People say, "Charlie, what new field should I study?" My answer is simple. Study the things that are hard to misunderstand. Study the things that don't fight back. Study the fundamental drivers of human behavior and business reality. Then, and this part is essential, keep studying them for the rest of your life. Learning is not memorization. Learning is refinement. Learning is updating your mental models based on better evidence. It means asking, is this still true? Do I understand this well enough? What am I missing? Does this fit with everything else I know? This is slow work. It is not glamorous. It does not give you dopamine hits, but it keeps you from doing stupid things. And avoiding stupidity is the entire game. Here is something people hate to hear. Most of what you currently know will be irrelevant in 10 years. What lasts, the durable stuff, is rare. So when you find something durable, study the hell out of it. Human psychology lasts. Microeconomics lasts. Incentives last. Business fundamentals last. Discipline lasts. Temperament lasts. These are worth learning. Everything else is optional. You don't need to chase 100 new trends. You don't need to be an expert in every shiny idea Silicon Valley invents. You don't need to memorize every new jargon term the financial industry creates to sound intelligent. You need a few mental models, few principles, a few filters. Then you spend decades sharpening them. This is how you become dangerous in a good way. Here's another point people miss. Learning pays off at the end, not the beginning. It compounds slowly, quietly. Then suddenly, for the first 10 years, it feels like nothing is happening. For the next 10 years, you start noticing the difference. After 30 years, people think you're a genius. You're not. You just stayed on a path they abandoned. Consistency is underrated. Consistency looks boring. Consistency looks unproductive. Consistency is extremely difficult for people addicted to stimulation. But consistency is how you build a towering advantage. It is how Warren went from knowing almost nothing about business at 20 to knowing more about business than almost anyone alive at 70. Not because he was brilliant, although he is, but because he never stopped learning the right things. The right things add up. The wrong things cancel each other out. You want your knowledge to accumulate like bricks, not like sand. People read to feel smart. Warren reads to become smart. Those are not the same activity. Most people learn occasionally. Warren learns relentlessly. Also not the same activity. But again, he is selective. That's the part almost everyone ignores. You cannot understand everything, but you can understand a few important things very, very well. Let me put it plainly. Your life improves when your learning improves. Your learning improves when your filtering improves. The filter is the real superpower. Not the books, not the hours, not the information. The filter. Know what to ignore. Know what to discard. Know what is noise masquerading as knowledge. Do that and you are already ahead of most people, even the very smart ones. That's lifelong learning the Munger way. It's not entertainment, it's not a hobby, it's a survival skill. And if you do it right, it becomes a compounding machine that quietly makes you rich. People think success comes from brilliance, from genius, from flashes of insight so rare they must be captured before they vanish. What nonsense. Success, real durable success, comes from something far less glamorous. The ability to eliminate stupidity quickly. Warren and I are not in the business of chasing brilliance. We are in the business of avoiding disasters. And that single habit has made us more money than any clever idea ever did. Most people do the opposite. They collect stupid ideas. They entertain stupid people. They spend time on stupid opportunities. Then they wonder why their results look, well, stupid. The world is full of bad ideas, wearing the costume of good opportunities. And if you don't learn to identify them in the first sentence, you will lose years of your life politely listening to things that should have been dismissed in 10 seconds. Warren and I are not polite in this category. People pitch us ideas. If we smell nonsense early, we end the conversation. We don't sit there nodding like idiots while someone burns our time. Time is your most valuable asset. It's also the asset people are most willing to throw away. Don't be one of them. Most investors fail because their metal trash filter is broken. They treat every idea as worthy of analysis. Every headline is meaningful. Every stock tip is a potential gold mine. This is madness. If you analyze garbage, your conclusions will also be garbage. The input determines the output. One of the smartest things you can do in life is stop letting bad information into your head in the first place. You don't need to outthink everyone. You need to outfilter them. Let me give you a simple example. When Bobby Fischer was dominating chess, people wondered how he could compete with computers that could calculate millions of moves per second. The answer was simple. He didn't try. He eliminated 99.99% of moves without thinking about them. He filtered. He used common sense. He ignored the obviously stupid choices that left him with only a handful of real decisions to consider. That is exactly how great investors operate. We don't evaluate everything. We exclude almost everything. Our minds are not busy. They're clean, uncluttered, focused only on the few things that actually matter. And that's why our decisions look simple, because they are simple once you throw away all the garbage. Most people can't do this. They love garbage. They cling to it. They nourish it. They let it fill up their mental house until there's no space left for good ideas. Eliminate stupidity, and suddenly intelligence has room to grow. Here are some practical examples. If an investment requires heroic assumptions, throw it out. If the business cannot explain how it makes money in one sentence, throw it out. If the CEO sounds like a motivational speaker, throw it out faster. If you hear the phrase revolutionize the industry, hang up immediately. If your friend is excited about a stock run, this alone will improve your results more than any advanced skill. People think filters are rude. They think skepticism is negative. They think saying no makes them close-minded. They're wrong, completely wrong. Saying no keeps you alive. Saying no keeps you rational. Saying no keeps you from joining the large club of overconfident idiots, losing money in creative ways. Here is a deeper truth. Your brain has limited bandwidth. You cannot carefully analyze 1,000 things. You cannot stay sharp while drowning in noise. So if you don't aggressively reject the unimportant, the important will never get the attention it deserves. We succeeded because we protected our attention like a precious resource. We treated stupidity like a virus. We avoided contaminated sources. We didn't let people infect us with their optimism or their fantasies. The business world rewards clarity, but clarity requires subtraction, not addition. You see better when you remove the clutter, not when you gather more of it. I have said this for decades. All I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I never go there. That's not a joke, that's a philosophy, a strategy, a worldview. Avoid the fatal mistakes. Avoid the obvious traps. Avoid the seductive nonsense, and you will be shocked at how far you rise above the average. You don't need to be smart in every situation. You just need to avoid being stupid in the big ones. Let me give you the punchline you came for. People don't go broke because they miss brilliant ideas. They go broke because they can't stop doing dumb things. Stop the dumb things. Stop early. Stop often. Build the habit of immediate rejection. That is the real edge. That is the real wisdom. That is how you build wealth slowly, safely, and surprisingly impressively. And the best part, anyone can do it if they have the discipline to stop flattering themselves with the illusion of brilliance. Most people want to be rich. Very few want to do the boring work that actually leads to being rich. And reading, real reading, is boring to most people. That's why they fail. Warren and I made billions by reading things other people ignored. Not cute quotes, not financial gossip, not whatever the commentators on TV were screaming about that week. We read annual reports. We read footnotes. We read industry data. We read the dull, sleep-inducing documents that contain the information the market eventually wakes up to. Most people don't read those things. They read headlines. They read top 10 stocks to buy this month. They read posts written by amateurs who can't manage their own finances, and they wonder why their portfolios look like disaster zones. Reading is not about entertainment. Reading is about building judgment. Judgment is what makes you rich, not excitement, not dopamine, and not trends. People want insights without effort. They want conviction without research. They want certainty without discipline. Sorry, the world doesn't work that way. Look at Warren. He reads for hours every day. He reads more now than he did at 30. He reads because he enjoys understanding how things work. That's the part almost everyone misses. The reading isn't a chore for him. It's oxygen. It's how he feeds the mind that makes the money. Reading gives him context. It gives him perspective. It gives him the ability to see a business the way a business person sees it, not the way a gambler sees it. That's a huge difference. Let me give you a simple example. Petrocina Warren invested billions because he read the filings, not because someone whispered a tip, not because a chart looked exciting, not because a pundit shouted nonsense at him. He read the documents. He saw business producing millions of barrels of oil a day. He saw the valuation was dirt cheap. He saw the economics clearly. Anyone could have done this. Very few did. And that's why he made billions while others didn't. You don't need a high IQ to read. You need the willingness to sit alone with your thoughts. You need the patience to go page after page without entertainment. You need the humility to accept how much you don't know. Those qualities are unusually rare. Thinking is even rarer. People think they're thinking, but most of the time they're just reacting to noise. Thinking requires silence. Thinking requires space. Thinking requires the courage to say, what if everyone else is wrong? That's how you develop independent judgment. And independent judgment is the only judgment worth having. If your beliefs come from the crowd, your results will also come from the crowd. And the crowd is not rich. Warren and I don't outsource our thinking. We don't follow analysts. We don't rely on forecasts. We don't trust opinions wrapped in confident language. We trust our own analysis, our own understanding, our own evaluation of reality. That is what reading is for, to build your own mental foundation so you don't have to lean on the flimsy crutches the world offers you. Reading gives you raw material. Thinking converts that material into insight. Insight turns into conviction. Conviction turns into action. Action, repeated intelligently over decades, turns into wealth. But the process begins with reading and continues with thinking and ends with you making decisions you actually understand. People always ask me, Charlie, what's the shortcut? The shortcut is that there is no shortcut. You read, you think, you decide. You repeat. Most people can't handle that. Too slow, too quiet, too demanding. They want noise. They want excitement. They want someone else to do the thinking for them. Fine. Let them. That's why they stay average. To be above average, you need above average habits. And reading, real reading, is an above average habit. You don't need to read 500 books a year. Just read what matters. Read deeply. Read repeatedly. Read the primary sources, not the commentary about the primary sources. The commentary is usually wrong anyway. And here's something important. The real reason to read isn't to predict the future. It's to avoid stupidity, to understand the boundaries of reality, to recognize when something clearly doesn't make sense. Most investment disasters happen because the investor didn't bother to understand what he owned. He believed a story instead of a statement. He trusted enthusiasm instead of numbers. He relied on hope instead of analysis. If you read, you avoid that fate. If you think, you avoid it even faster. Let me give you the simple Munger-style punchline. Use your brain. It's one of the few advantages you control completely. You don't need genius. You don't need secrets. You don't need someone whispering stock picks in your ear. You need clarity. You need discipline. You need the willingness to read, think, and act independently. That alone will put you miles ahead of the average investor. And as I've said many times, the average investor is not the standard you want to hold yourself to. People obsess over intelligence. They worship IQ. They think the world belongs to the smartest person in the room. Well, here's a secret that shouldn't be a secret. The smartest person in the room loses plenty of money. The calmest person in the room rarely does. Temperament beats intelligence. Temperament beats talent. Temperament even beats experience, if your experience didn't teach you self-control. Most people don't lose money because they're dumb. They lose money because they can't behave. They panic. They rush. They chase. They copy. They react emotionally to events they don't understand. They're not victims of the market. They're victims of themselves. Warren and I are not immune to fear or greed. We simply learned how to keep those emotions on a leash, a very short leash. That's temperament. You can call it calmness. You can call it discipline. You can call it emotional sobriety. But at the end of the day, temperament is just the ability to sit still while the crowd runs around screaming. Most people can't do that, not even for 5 minutes. In a crisis, the average investor looks at the screen, sees a falling stock, and his brain turns into a slot machine. The lights start flashing. The noises start buzzing. Every instinct says, do something. Now that is not temperament. That is gambling instinct. and that instinct is why they lose. Temperament, on the other hand, says sit down, shut up, let the dust settle, think. Temperament is the ability to tolerate discomfort without acting stupidly. This is a rare ability, very rare. Markets go through madness all the time. Euphoria, panic, epidemics of stupidity that spread like contagious diseases. Without temperament, you will inevitably catch the disease. During every major crash, we saw the same spectacle. The crowd throwing away great businesses at giveaway prices. Investors selling at the worst possible moment because their nervous system couldn't handle temporary pain. Notice I said temporary because most pain in markets is temporary, unless you turn it into permanent damage by acting impulsively. The market gives you volatility. You turn it into disaster. That's what bad temperament does. Good temperament does the opposite. It turns volatility into opportunity. Warren didn't become rich because he knew exactly when markets would fall. He became rich because he didn't freak out when they did. He stayed calm when others couldn't. He acted rationally when others were losing their minds. He waited longer than others had the patience for. That's temperament. And here's the interesting part. Temperament is not exciting. It's not fast. It's not glamorous. It is slow, dull, and repetitive. But it works. And it works better than any theory, any model, any fancy algorithm. Emotions are the biggest cost in investing. Not fees, not taxes, not commissions. Emotions. People say, Charlie, what's the biggest risk in investing? I always give the same answer. You are the biggest risk. Your fears, your impulses, your inability to sit still, your desire to be popular, your addiction to action, your lack of patience. Those things ruin more fortunes than recessions ever will. The market doesn't destroy wealth. People do. You can give a person the best framework in the world, Ben Graham's philosophy, Fisher's insights, Buffett's wisdom, and they will still lose money if they lack temperament. They'll abandon the framework at the first sign of discomfort. They will jump from strategy to strategy like a frog hopping across traffic. Eventually, they get run over. Temperament prevents that. It keeps you grounded. It keeps you from being owned by emotions. It keeps you rational in a world that punishes irrationality with extreme efficiency. Nobody gets rich by following the crowd. Crowds panic early and celebrate too soon. They buy high because it feels good. They sell low because it feels scary. The market is a machine for transferring wealth from people with bad temperament to people with good temperament. This isn't philosophy. This is arithmetic. Temperament is not about being unfeeling. It's about being unmoved by nonsense. It's the ability to say, I don't care what everyone else is doing. I care whether my decision is right. And let me tell you something important. Right decisions often feel uncomfortable. They feel lonely. They feel slow. They feel boring. That is exactly why so few people make them. Here is the brutal truth. If you can't control your emotions, someone else will control your money. It might be the crowd. It might be the market. It might be your own anxiety. But somebody will take over the wheel, and you won't like where the car ends up. Temperament is the one thing you must master if you want to survive the long game. Not intelligence, not luck, not prediction. Temperament because the market will test you. It will scare you. It will tempt you. It will insult you. It will embarrass you. It will punish any hint of weakness. And if you don't have temperament, the market will take everything from you. But if you do have it, you can ignore the noise. You can outweight the chaos. You can buy when others panic. You can hold when others fold. Thank you.